Okay, do you see the screen? Do you see the slide?
No. Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
All right. Okay. So, let's start. So today is the number 6 sessions. I will talk about airworthiness of aircraft, and I'm from this group of engineering and management risk research. I have explained about the group earlier, and is a group member. Then let's talk direct to the topic. We talk about aircraft, we talk about airworthiness of aircraft, and we try to define what is aircraft first. So aircraft is defined as in the Malaysian Civil Aviation Regulation 2016. In the schedule, it explains what is aircraft. We can see aircraft, there are two categories: lighter than air and heavier than air. And lighter than air, we have power, non-powered. Similarly, with heavier than air is powered and non-powered. We are more focused on the powered driven, which is on aeroplane and rotorcraft. So that is our business here. And however, we also do have in Malaysia our colleague flying hot air balloons. So they are in the category of lighter than air and non-powered. Many years ago, we also do have airship. So we have lighter than air, power driven, which is airship. And while I was during my DCA time, when I was about to retire, there's also a company bringing a hot air airship. So hot air airship is lighter than air, power driven. So this is about aircraft. So this aircraft definition is defined in the law. It is in Malaysian Civil Aviation Regulations. So why we talk about this airworthiness? Most of the discussion tonight will be talking about the basic fundamental of the understanding on airworthiness. So why? Because we have to ratify an international treaty, which is the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO. It was formed in 1944, and we were not state yet at that time. We were under the British, and we also at the time we are invaded by the Japanese. So we only become a member after we got the independence in 1957, and we become member in 1958. It was May 7, 1958. So as a member state, we have to ratify all the articles in the conventions. So this is the look of the first page of the articles. This is the first version, first original articles, convention article, which you can Google from the web, and then you can find this original, and it's written there, the 7 days of December 1944 in Chicago. At that time, they have a meeting, they have agreed on certain things, and the agreement is written in the term of articles. So one of it is Article 31. Article 31 talk about certificate of airworthiness. Every aircraft engaged in international navigation shall be provided with a certificate of airworthiness, issued or rendered valid by the state in which it is registered. So it means that all the contracting state, all the member states, shall follow this, they should have certificate of airworthiness for the aircraft registered by the state. And also we go to Article 33. Article 33 talk about recognition of certificate and license. And the first sentence there, the certificate of airworthiness and certificate of competency. So still they talk about certificate of airworthiness, and the second term they recognize as valid. So any aircraft having the certificate of airworthiness, we should recognize it as a valid. So that's why we do not question any aircraft coming in if they declare they have the ICAO Annex 8 certificate of airworthiness. So there is a treaty, and the treaty has stated that any state shall recognize the certificate of airworthiness issued by other state. Then we go to the article. Article is basic policy. You read the sentence there, is something that you cannot work on. It's just a policy. You must have something, you should have done this, blah blah blah. So but the detail will be in more comprehensive document, which ICAO published 19th document. They call this as standard and recommended practices. If you see the words letter SARPS, those are standard and recommended practices, and there are 19 annexes published as standard and recommended practices by the International Civil Aviation Organization. So you can see from there, there are number 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 19. Our interest is on Annex 8. Annex 8 is airworthiness of aircraft. Then we need to go and define what is airworthiness, what is airworthy. This definition here is in the ICAO Annex 8. I've just shown you ICAO Annex 8, and then this is the terminology. You can find it in the definition of terminologies in the ICAO Annex 8. And what is airworthiness? So airworthiness is the status of aircraft engine, propeller or part when it conforms to its first word is approved design and is in condition for safe operation. There are two words there. There are two keywords there: approved design and in condition for safe operations. So mean that if you don't have approved design, then that mean that the aircraft is not qualified to have a certificate of airworthiness. The second term here is condition for safe operation. This is subjective to your operation. So the content of Annex 8, you can see here, this is what is the contents of Annex 8. There are parts. There are parts 1 till part 7. Okay, part 1 is more on definition. Definition of airworthiness is in part 1. Part 2 is procedure for certification and continuing airworthiness. So this part will have a requirement for the type certificate, production certificate, certificate of airworthiness, and the continuing airworthiness of the aircraft. So part 3, 3A, 3B, 4, 4A, 4B, and 5, 6, and 7, those are technical requirement. So these are the basis of the airworthiness requirement, or in our Malaysian Civil Aviation Regulation, as I shown you earlier, there is Regulation 25 Airworthiness Code. So these are the basis: part 3, 3A, 3B, 4, 4A, 4B, 5, 6, and 7. We will go through this later in the next sessions. So they call this as technical requirements, and this technical requirement will be the basis of the certification requirement or airworthiness requirement of aircraft, which you are very familiar. From EASA they call it CS, and from US they call it FAR. For example, if you take part 3 is CS-25 large aeroplane in Europe, and in the US is FAR Part 25 large aircraft. So those are the content of the Annex 8. Then if you want to look at more refinement, you look at more detail of the Annex 8 content, you can see there Part 1 definition, Part 2 procedure for certification and continuing airworthiness, and there are also chapter on procedures for certification and continuing airworthiness. Then you can go to the next part, large aeroplane. Large aeroplane technical requirement is Part 3, Part 3A and Part 3B. Aeroplane more than 5.7, they call large aeroplane. There are date there, date before 2 March 2004 and after March 2004. So the certain changes in the requirement on date. For example, you talk about the blast proof cabin cockpit door, so that is a new requirement. We put it in Part 3, I believe. Now we have helicopters. Helicopters is Part 4, Part 4A and Part 4B. So there is also date there before and after 2007. And we have small aeroplane over 750 kg but not exceeding 5,700 kg. So the technical requirement will be in the ICAO Annex 8 Part 5. So this is for small aeroplane. Anything below 750 kg is no technical requirement in the ICAO Annex 8, and anything below 750 kg they will not qualify for a standard certificate of airworthiness. It will be qualified as restricted category, restricted type certificate and special category certificate of airworthiness. And for aircraft below 750, we can negotiate with authority on what will be the airworthiness requirement for the certifications. And then you go to Part 4, which is propellers, engines. Part 6 engine, Part 7 propellers. And this is the pages. You can see I show you it. This is the Annex 8 on the left, and also ICAO published airworthiness manual, so which explain the airworthiness aspect of the aircraft in detail. So I don't want to go into that, but if you are interested, you go to the document 9670. They call it airworthiness manual. Basically what we get from the web, this is the book that you can find, but the later one I believe you cannot get it direct, you have to buy, and you may get assistance from CAA. CAA has a library there, and then you may go and find the latest ICAO at the CAA library. So the airworthiness, there are two aspects of airworthiness. There is initial airworthiness and there is continuing airworthiness. So in with us it's not very clear, but in Europe they make it very clear, because their regulatory structure is designed in the way there is initial airworthiness and there is continuing airworthiness. Initial airworthiness talk about type certificate and initial certificate of airworthiness. So initial mean the first certificate of airworthiness is initial airworthiness, and the continuing airworthiness will be the renewal of the certificate of airworthiness. And for the initial airworthiness, we talk about design organization approval Part 21, production approval Part 21, many more which I will show you later. So for continuing airworthiness, we talk about continuing airworthiness management, talking about aircraft maintenance organization, approach training organization. This will be in the Annex 1 of the EU law. So this should be very clear to us now, and we should understand this aspect. In fact, if you go for the new type of aircraft for initial COA, the authority CAA will go to the OEM and they will do the type validation. So we don't issue type certificate, we issue type validation certificate. Some countries like the US, Australia, they issue type certificate. For example, if they are receiving A320 new from first of type from Europe, they will go there, they will do the design review and they will issue type certificate. That's a requirement by the ICAO. However, we take another option. The other option is render valid other people type certificate. Okay, what we have here in Malaysia, we have Malaysian Civil Aviation Regulation 2016. You go to part 3. Part 3 is airworthiness of aircraft, and we have regulation 21 up to regulation 43, and we have also regulation 44 to 46. So here we trying to define, we try to look at where is what regulation is on initial, what regulation is for the continuing airworthiness. You can see there 21 certification of approval for design and manufacturing. Main this is for design organization approval and production organization approval, DOA POA. And 22 is validation of design and manufacturing of foreign product. And 23 certification validation of approval of aeronautical product. And 24 is certification validation of approval design modification and repair. That's why for you, if you applying for STC, mostly you also need to do validation on the STC under regulation 24. And 25 is adoption of airworthiness code, which I've shown you earlier in Annex 8. There are technical requirements from part 3 down to part 7. So those are airworthiness code. And 25 in Malaysia, we talk about adoption of airworthiness code. In the 25, we say that we accept any airworthiness code from any contracting state. So we have a bit of flexibility there. We don't have our own airworthiness code, we accept other authority, other states airworthiness code. It's under 25. 26 is airworthiness, is certificate of airworthiness, and 27 is the condition for the certificate of airworthiness to be valid, and 28 is the export certificate of airworthiness if you are exporting the aircraft outside, or if you are transfer the aircraft registration out of Malaysia. So this is in black. And then also we go to 33, approved signatories. Approved signatories is where we ask requiring all the post holders to apply for approved signatories. For example, we do have head of design for DOA, independent monitoring, we do have compliance verification engineer. Those are approved signatories. And 34 is mandatory containing airworthiness information. So those are actually in service efficiency reporting. Okay, now we also go to 28, aircraft records, completion of retention record, equipment for aircraft operation, radio equipment, minimum equipment requirement, aircraft weight schedule, and noise. So those are part and parcel of the initial airworthiness. So for the continuing airworthiness, we talk about 29, issuance renewal of variation of permit to fly, renewal. If new issue is still in initial airworthiness, but renewal is continuing airworthiness. And then we also have requirement for maintenance release 31, a proof of organization to engage in continuing airworthiness management, CAMO, maintenance of aeronautical product part 145, and maintenance training is ATO. And 32, approval of organization relating to maintenance and maintenance training. So to maintenance is 145, maintenance training is ATO. And 35, aircraft maintenance license, 36, examination and test relating to aircraft maintenance license, and 37, approval for course and training instruction for aircraft maintenance. And we also have requirement for noise certificate by aircraft registered outside Malaysia and noise certificate to be carried. Those are the aspect of continuing airworthiness in our law. It does not clearly break it down into two, clearly of initial airworthiness and continuing airworthiness. The European has done that, and the American also, FAA also has done that. Next, we talk about the metrics. So what we can see here is interesting that if we can map them, because we have IQ article, we have Malaysian Civil Aviation Regulation, we do have notices as I have explained it earlier, and we also have EASA references, because most of our notices are basically adoption and adaptation of EASA regulations. So this is a good exercise. If you are more interested on this area, you can do the mapping, but I will done some of it, not complete. What I can see that is I make a table. This regulation, you can see on the left side is either organization, production, or procedures. You can see later, you can understand what I'm trying to say. Okay, now EU laws. I start with the EU first. Basically, it's easier to track. What we have in Part 21 is we do have Subpart A. EASA Part 21 do have Subpart A, General Provision, which is talking about AD, talking about in-service problem. So where is in our notice, we have notice AN4 and AN11. And where is in the regulation, MCA, I didn't find it yet, but it's there somewhere. But for Act is the same. Act only give power to minister to write law. So whatever regulation, whatever notices published by the CAM or by the minister himself, which is in the Act given the power. So what we're trying to do next is to look at the type certificate. If we're talking about type certificate, you're applying for new type certificate in Malaysia, or you apply for restricted type certificate. Where do we go? We go to notice, CA notice 8102, type certificate, and they say there CM Part 21 Subpart B. You can see the relationship of the adoption and adaptation. In Malaysia, we call it CM Part 21 Subpart B. In Europe, is the Part 21 Subpart B. So you can see the most left, this is organization approval. So 8102 talking about approval to be an organization to do the design, which we call it is DOA, Design Organization Approval. And also we do have notice 8107, validation of type certificate. So type certificate 8102, if you design and certify our own aircraft in Malaysia, it's 8102. We do have two before. We do have SME MD3 160 and we do have Eagle 150. We have issued two type certificate under the type certification process. So now we also, every new aircraft that come in, new type that the CA require you to go to the for them to go to the OEM for the design review. That is under the requirement of 8102, validation of type certificate. Now, where is in the IQ? IQ Annex 8 Part 2 Chapter 1 Para 144 1.4 1.4 Title Type Certificate, and paragraph 141 says that the state of design where the aircraft is being designed, upon receipt of satisfactory evidence the aircraft type is in compliance with the design aspect of the appropriate airworthiness requirement, shall issue a TC to define the design and to signify approval of the design of the aircraft type. So IQ Annex 8 says that it's become mandatory for the state to issue type certificate if you want to go for international navigation, as stated in the Article 31 earlier. So continue with the map. We go to Subpart C is reserve. Subpart D talking about changes to type certificate and restricted type certificate. It's not clearly there. I believe it will be part of the similar AN for the TC. And E is subpart E is supplemental type certificate. Malaysia, I believe, do not issue STC yet. And subpart F, production organization, production without production organization approval, mean that production without POA. Production without POA, we call it in the US, they call it production under type certificate, production under TC. So the difference is production under TC, the FAA or EASA surveyor will always be on site to approve all those all the design and all the tests. Okay, to approve all the production without production approval, they do not have the privilege to do the production, but they can produce under the type certificate where the airworthiness engineer and airworthiness officers of the authority will go and do the work with the organizations. Okay, now subpart G, production organization approval. This is POA. So what we have AN 8201 production organization approval. Mean that CAA Malaysia has issued this 8201 if you are producing part or producing aircraft in Malaysia. So here for the MCA, we go back to regulation 21. As I have shown you earlier, regulation 21 said that people intended to design manufacture aircraft must seek approval from the CAA. So that is regulation 21. The detail of that is in 8201, how to be approved as production organization approval. And Annex 8 state that Annex 8 Part 2 Chapter 2 Paragraph 221, aircraft production, the state of manufacturing shall ensure that each aircraft including parts comply to the type design approval. So this is the basis of POA, production approval. So there is a term there, state of design, state of manufacturing. State of design issue the TC. It's only one state of design for the aircraft model, but there will be a few state of manufacturing. State of manufacturing is where the aircraft being manufactured. For example, we have A320. There is China also having a POA. So EASA issue POA for A320 to be assembled in China. So China having the POA. So they are also state of manufacturer for the aircraft of A320 with the series, with the specific MSN, manufacturer serial number. Then we go to the next map. Subpart H, certificate of airworthiness and restricted certificate of airworthiness. We do have notice 8301 talking about certificate of airworthiness, and we do have notice 8304 certificate of airworthiness for export. If you design, manufacture your own aircraft and and then you exporting it out, you have to go to 8304 how to get the certificate of airworthiness for export. As far as Malaysian Civil Aviation Regulation, you refer to Regulation 26, which are talking about certificate of airworthiness, and you go for the Article 31 in the ICAO articles, and for the annexes for the sub, you go to Annex 8 Part 2 Chapter 3 certificate of airworthiness. Then subpart I, we talk about noise certificate, and then you have notice 9101 noise certificate. And for the Malaysian Civil Aviation Regulation, you go to Regulation 44. And for the noise, for the ICAO is ICAO Annex 16. And subpart J, Part 21 subpart J of EASA, we do have design organization approval. We do have notice 8401 design organization approval, and we do also have notice 8402 approval of design organization with alternate procedure to demonstrate design capability. This is for the non-complex part, so you may apply for 8402, and it is in the regulation MCA. Go back to regulation 21, and in the ICAO Annex 8 para 1.3, proof of compliance with appropriate airworthiness requirement. And 131 say there shall be an approved design consisting of such drawing, spec, report, document, evidence. And the last word there in the note, the approval or design is facilitated in some state by approving the design organization. That's why we do have the 8401, as what recommended by Annex 8, and EASA obviously they have part 21 subpart J. So our 8401 is adopt and adapt of EASA part 21 subpart J. That's why I make the matrix, because we can go back and cross refer later. Next, we talk about continuing airworthiness. Continuing airworthiness also I make a matrix, so we can say the matrix is here. Similar column, we have EU law, we have Annex 1 part M, and there are subpart A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H and I. So that is Annex 1 part M. There is also Annex 2 part 145, Annex 3 part 66, Annex 4 part 147. So let's look at part M. Part M, we do have Notice 6101, Continuing Airworthiness of Aircraft, CAM part M. This is not CAMO. This is the condition of how aircraft to be continually airworthy. So Notice 6101. And we have subpart A, General, subpart B, Accountability, subpart C, Continuing Airworthiness, subpart D, Maintenance Standard, subpart E, Component. And there is subpart F, Maintenance Organisation, Notice 6501, Limited Maintenance Organisation Approval. So for the part M subpart F, we do have 6501. And we also do have notice for part M subpart G. Part M subpart G is Continuing Airworthiness Management Organisation. So we do, the CA issue 6102, and we don't have subpart H, and we don't have subpart I. I believe Malaysia only receive airworthiness review report, and they don't give you the industry airworthiness review certificate. So we only have 6501 and 6502 and 6102 for the Annex 1 part M. For the 145, our 145 came from Annex 2 part 145, which is Notice 6501, Maintenance Organisation Approval, and in bracket they call it DC part 145. And Annex 3 part 6, Notice 1101, Airworthiness Maintenance License, CM part 66, and Annex 4 part 147, Notice 1201, Approved Maintenance Training Organisation, CM part 147. That is the tracking, how we track back where all those AN come from, and we can track back to the EU laws. So this is the framework. We can see here is a chart, and I will try to get this through during this time PKP. We have the most box for the most left is DOA 8401. Then DOA also we deal with type certificate 8107. After you have design approved, you go to production 8201. And when you have aircraft, the aircraft may be exported, and you go to COA of export 8304. Or you may sell the aircraft direct to operator owner in Malaysia. They go to CAMO for certificate of airworthiness for the airworthiness review report, which also covers 6101. That is the condition how the aircraft to be airworthy. And then the CAMO will talk to MRO to maintain the aircraft as per the maintenance schedule. And if there are any mode of any repair not in according with the manual, they go for DOA 8401. So this DOA aspect of on the most right, DOA 8401, is for the approval. The scope is for the approval of mode and repair. But the most left, DOA 8401, is the type certificate holder. I will go through those notices later one by one in the next few sessions. So basically that's it. It's very short session, and if you have any question, you can discuss now. Thank you. Any questions? We got 30 4 participants here now, and if you got any question, please unmute your mic and discuss.
Professor, Naveen
Yes.
here.
Naveen, yes, Naveen.
Okay, I just want to clarify a few things. The slide that you're showing right now,
Yep.
okay, right? Okay, Ibu boleh lah.
Which one? Which page?
Go back. Not this one. Depan lagi.
Okay.
Lagi. Okay, stop.
Okay.
Belakang. Okay, satu lagi.
Okay.
No, before that.
Before this. This is one.
Before this.
This one. Small aeroplane.
Okay, can stop here.
Yeah.
Okay, there's a statement here that says for which application for certification
Yeah.
was submitted on or after 13 December.
Yep.
This one sometimes gets people confused
Okay.
because a lot of even AM or CVR, FDR,
Okay.
they also mention this kind of statement similar to this.
Okay.
This certification is talking about the first TC being approved.
No, this one is okay. Before this, part 5 was not in the IQ NX8.
Mm-hmm.
So after we got many airplane like very light aircraft, we got like sport ELA, sport aircraft SLA, sport light aircraft. Then they come with this 750 kilo kind of aircraft, over 750 kilo. So this is basically part 23.
Okay.
So talking about the Piper, talking about the Cessna 172, we're talking about the Beechcraft, talking about Diamond 40, 42. So this is the category.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what I'm looking at is the statement because it says there for which application for certification.
Okay. So we cannot I can't mix with the requirement of FDR CVR because FDR CVR is requirement for certificate of airworthiness.
Correct.
So this is is talking about technical requirement for type certificate.
Okay. Now they say here, even for this type certificate, it says which application
Yeah.
for certification was submitted. How do we define this? How do we know that when this application was submitted?
Okay, you can see the TCDS. You go to the aircraft type certificate data sheet. You see when it was applied. The type certificate data sheet will show you when was the TC been applied.
Okay.
From there you can say whether this is part 5 applicable or not. However, for your information, no country use this part 5. No one use this technical requirement. This technical requirement just the basis. What they did, they come up with their own requirement. For example, the US, they come up with the part 23. Europe come up with the CS 23. And now I think they also European light aircraft standard. So those these are just a basis for them to develop their own design requirement.
Okay.
Okay. Naveen, clear?
Okay, this part is clear lah.
So any other question? No, you have a lot of question. Okay, no problem. We can discuss. People listening, no problem.
Sorry, Prof. Salih ya.
Cik Salih, yes.
Ya, Assalamualaikum.
Salam.
Salam sejahtera semua.
Ya, semua.
I think what Naveen wants to look at is your slide number 13.
Oh, 13.
Yeah, 13. I think that's the question that he's posing with regard to the
13.
certificate of airworthiness application.
13. Yeah. Yeah.
One more.
One more down.
I think the next one. Not
Yeah.
12, 14. Yeah, this one.
Okay. So 14 we do have part 1, 2, 3. Part 1, part 2, and 3, 3A, 3B, 4, 4A, 4B, 5, 6, 7. Those are technical requirement.
Okay, so basically when they mention that, for example, part 4A, helicopters for which application was for certification was submitted on or after 22nd March 1991. So this one we go back to the TCDS lah, basically see when they was applied.
Yes.
Okay.
But again, it's not. I don't think that information any value to us.
Okay.
Because this is for the TC. So means that if you want to argue what are not there, you can argue say it was not there because it was not required. However, we need to understand where the aircraft was TC.
Okay.
So the country who issued the TC may have opted to be using higher standard. So the thing is, we cannot argue with this. This is just information. What we can go and argue is when you go to the aircraft, and the aircraft must have done type validation. Yeah. So whatever has been accepted on the TC is deemed to be accepted. So we have to follow. We cannot go back to this part, this technical requirement, because this technical requirement remain as information basis in the ICAO Annex 8.
Okay.
No OEM design according to this.
Okay.
They design according to their CS or their FAR.
Okay, noted.
Okay. But if, for your information, you want to know when, then you can go to the type certificate data sheet. From there, you can determine when the TC was applied.
Okay. Because my concern was like the statement tu yang kata application for certification that was submitted, because a similar statement it may not be for this one. There are also other areas in the macam AN that mention when the first C of A was issued from this state to this state, and how do we know that particular aircraft bila the first C of A was issued?
Okay, those C of A, okay, C of A was issued. Okay. Okay, the TC issue we know from the TCDS for sure.
Okay.
But the C of A is, if you're talking about C of A was issued, there are dates there. Then we have to go back to the aircraft record when the aircraft was initially issued with the C of A.
Okay.
So depending on what you're looking for, I'm looking at more on just the definition here. Okay, if the requirement say that you need to do thing based on when the C of A was issued, different than when the aircraft was TC. It's two different things.
Okay.
When the aircraft was issued, by right, you go back to the aircraft record, you will see the first C of A issued on the aircraft. If you don't have it, it's something wrong. You don't have a good record on the aircraft. All aircraft you must have those copies of the first certificate of airworthiness. Okay.
Sorry, Navin. Saleh here. Your concern is with regard to the equipment to be on board the aircraft, isn't it?
Yeah, because of the statement. Because macam CDR kan, dia ada different categories where they say the first COA was issued from when to when, then you must have how many. So where to find that information, when was the first COA was first issued? Was it related to CAM punya first COA ataupun the first COA after the production?
Tell you what, I think you have to refer back to CAM to be fair. Because I understand your concern, because the implication is depending when the COA was issued, it may impact on the type of equipment that has to be carried on board.
Yeah,
that's correct.
So, yes, so I think that's where you're coming from. Understand?
Okay, from my view, what happened is, if you look at these three, just look at the 4A and 4B.
Okay.
So means that there are differences in design requirements.
Yes.
Okay. There are differences in design requirement. 4A and 4B. Okay. So now, if there are something that not been done before, maybe 3A, put it this way, 3A and 3B. In the first aircraft design requirement, there's no 16G seat.
Okay.
It's only 9G. Later, they changed the design requirement. The aircraft must have 16G seats.
Okay.
So, if you're talking about old aircraft, which is prior to 2004, and you asking, in authority asking you to install 16G seat, it will be a big problem because the floorboard itself cannot stand 16G.
Correct.
The floor, not the floorboard, the floor beam. The floor beam was designed to 9G. So you install 16G seat, still you have a problem with the floor beam. So if you're asking for the later aircraft, obviously the floor beam is already satisfying the 16G. So that is the real story. Yeah? That's how we look at, because we did actually when I was when we audited by ICAO, this is a true story. And they're asking us, do we do major mode? We say yes, because we did mode on the 747 and 777. We do massive cabin reconfigurations. Okay, immediately when they look at that, they ask us, do you consider 16G seats? We say yes. And they look at the report. The seat is 16G. And then the beam is 9G. And they said, oh, this is not correct because the requirement says 16G. I told them, this aircraft is old aircraft. The 747 was designed before the 16G was required. As far as the requirement of seats installation, yes, we comply to 16G. We have 16G seat. But as far as the floor beam, we cannot do that because it's already designed that way. Then they quiet. So that can happen. So similarly on what equipment required on your helicopters, that also may happen.
Okay.
Clear?
Yep. The requirement.
So to clarify those, whether how to do it, how to comply for aircraft which is not having the equipment at that time because not required during the certification, you need to discuss with the authority.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Next questions. We got 33 on board here. So my presentation is very simple, just to initiate the thinking, the thought. Maybe some of you are not really aware what to ask because you're not in the business of this. And so
sorry, back to you, Saleh again.
Yeah, Cik Saleh.
Back to Navin's question.
Yeah.
His concern is to identify when the COA was first issued. If you have some doubt, maybe you can start, as per Prof. Abu's suggestion, to look at the TCDS when it was first issued, then work your way back based on this ICAO requirement to at least know when the COA could have been issued. At least there as a starting point.
If okay,
that's a good way of assuming when is the first COA issued, because the date of the type certificate, that'll be a good one.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then another thing is that the schedule of equipment will also specify the weight of the aircraft, isn't it?
Yes, Roger.
Yes. So you can have also another condition there that should be able to help you out.
Okay.
So for the initial COA, when I was receiving in the past, when I want to issue COA for the aircraft from foreign country, the first question was, we have to look at for the initial COA, the history. When the aircraft was out of factory, when was the COA was issued? So in your record, we should have the first COA in your file. If not, to me, it will have a problem later on.
Usually the first COA the aircraft keluar daripada factory tu kan.
You should have it in your file, in the aircraft file. If not, you have a problem to me lah.
Yes.
Because the aircraft cannot be tracked back to its original as they went out from factory.
Yep.
Okay. Alright, next. Mr. Ruben, Cik Amir, Loman, anything? For new TC, if you want to share, if you want to hear anything on the new TC, for anyone interested to apply for new TC, interested to apply for POA, you can ask here. But in the following series, I will go to that requirement paragraph by paragraph. We look at the AN.
Sorry, Abu, Saleh again.
Yes.
Recently, the organization I'm working for, applied for STC.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if you look at AN78, mention about FAA and JAA, and then JAUK AAN, sorry. Some of the data that is recognized by the CAA Malaysia. So this company was involved in trying to get validation for New Zealand CAA STC, for example.
Okay.
That's not part of the notice.
Okay.
But from what I understand, this is just sharing some information. If you have any STC that needs to be validated, please ask the CAN, because it's not only limited to JAA or YASA or FAA or CAA-UK. They may be in a position to validate other STCs as well. So please take note.
Yeah. So basically, STC is design change. So design change shall be approved. So STC is not automatic approval, because STC only valid into the country of issuance the approval. When it comes to Malaysia, Malaysia has to approve it either through DOA or through AN78. AN78 also is already outdated. If you refer to the AN78, it's still referring to 1996. So yeah, it's a issue there. So what we need to understand, STC is a modification, it's a design change. It has to be approved through either DOA or direct to the CAA. If you want to go direct to CAA, the format is 78. But again, like Cik Saleh say, 78 was issued during my time. I was part of the guy who wrote those 78. It was way back. I left BCA also almost 10 years. So it was what, 20 years ago, something like that. So yeah, that's the issue.
Yeah, and another thing that we should all be reminded, and I'm sure that everybody is aware of this as well, is that the STC holder should apply for the validation via their authority that issued the approval. Do not go direct to CAM.
Yeah, true.
Because it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, so what happened is, in fact, in my time, for the type validation, for the supplemental type certification, those documents issued by the state of design. So mean that if you're looking for STC validation from other country, you have to write, the company have to write to the state of design asking to request to validate the STC. So involve authority to authority. We have to inform CA. CA will write to the IASA, for example, if IASA will talk to their OEM, and then CA will go to the OEM for the type validation together with IASA. Am I right, Cik Saleh?
I think the approach is the STC holder will approach the authority that approved the STC, and that authority responsible for the design approval will then contact CAA Malaysia with regard to the STC validation.
Okay.
That's how I've been made to understand.
That's better. Yes, that's better. Correct.
Prof.
Yeah.
Cik Saleh, Navin here again.
Yeah.
Okay, basically, of course, CAM will charge us a fee for the validation, which we have to, the operator like us have to come up with the amount lah. Every time that we talk to the STC holder that certain STC needs to be validated, it always ends up that they, the validation, right, basically is siapa yang kena bayar tu.
Okay.
Is it us or is it the STC holder?
Depends on how you negotiate the purchase contract.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's true.
Actually, it's a business issue. If the STC holder sees that by having Malaysian type validation, he can sell more of the kits, then he will sponsor. He will take up the cost. But if they see that there will not much benefit for them when they issue the type validation, when they get the type, when Malaysia type validated their STC, they probably say, like Cik Saleh say, you may have to put it in your purchase contract.
That's the grey area there lah.
Yes.
It's a commercial thing lah.
Yes, commercial thing, correct.
Okay, I understood.
Alright. Okay, any more? Just sharing, okay. I think Cik Saleh also can help. We used to issue, as far as Malaysian TC, we do issue 2 TC. One is for SME MD3 160 from SME Aviation, and then we also issue TC for the Eagle 150B from Eagle Aircraft Malaysia as our local TC. So we should prod that Malaysia used to issue TC for aircraft. We used to be advanced in aircraft manufacturing, design manufacturing. We used to have 2 type certificate, and this type certificate also been validated by the US FAA. We also do have tires, TSO, by SIAM Tires, and we also have the most recent that we have the LED light TSO. So we are not that bad, we are ahead at that time. We also have bilateral airworthiness safety agreement with the FAA, which our products type certificated and produced in Malaysia can be accepted in the US with minimum design review. So that's what happened to us. So we do have experience in issuing the type certificate and issuing production certificate. We do have experience in design and manufacturing approval of aircraft in Malaysia. Okay, no more question. I think I can raise. Sure.
This Kamal.
Assalamualaikum. Waalaikumsalam. Cik Kamal dari mana? Westa. Oh, Cik Kamal Zuhairi. Okay bang, silakan.
Mungkin saya nak tahu sikit pasal PMA punya certification ni. Because some of the product that we obtain in Malaysia, sometimes when we get it, it's a PMA parts, especially come from USA lah. So and then there are some the AN berapa saya tak ingat dah, dia dah bubuh some guideline on the PMA parts. Yes, correct. So actually PMA parts is not the parts yang produced by the aircraft OEMs.
Okay.
Can you elaborate a bit about this PMA? How the punya acceptance on the from the CAAM punya point of view on these products?
I cannot talk on behalf of CA, but let me explain first what is TSO, what is PMA. TSO is part and component design and manufacture, okay, by an approved organization by the authority. They call it TSOA, which is the combination of DOA and POA. So this TSO means that the aircraft, the parts is eligible for aircraft use because it was certified to the aircraft requirement. However, you need to certify the installation on the aircraft type. Okay, PMA is piece part which is designed and manufactured, reverse engineering by an organization also approved by the FAA. So I think it's only policy whether how we want to deal with this PMA. But for sure, one of the problem of PMA is I think if you use PMA part, you lose the warranty of the product of the aircraft, whatever you install the PMA. As far as CA is concerned, I think he's got the AN there very clearly and how we deal with it. And other than that, I believe you have to negotiate direct to the officer.
Okay.
Yeah? There's
so
no...
Basically macam kalau what I explained before, macam kalau aircraft lama, old aircraft kan, the OEM no longer produce the parts. And then usually these parts, if we order it, the only available
PMA
product is PMA lah.
Betul. So I think there's a come where risk analysis should be done, and your application to authority and even to justify to anyone installing the PMA part after you've done your risk assessment. So you cannot look at this as a one problem, but you need to look at the criticality of the problem. For example, I used to do work installing oxygen bottle. The bracket is PMA part. So to me, if you do risk assessment and then the bottle inside the overhead cabin overhead cabin compartment. So if you do the risk assessment, if the part fail, the bottle still inside there, intact. It does not hurt anyone. So to me, if you do risk assessment, if you want to get the OEM part, I think cannot get the bracket from any OEM, right? So I think there should be some risk assessment. We submit this risk assessment to authority, and you will show the risk index. If talking about PMA of aircraft engine part, then that is different. So you have to look at this case by case. I believe this is a time that we need to, that's why I'm really advocating this risk assessment, because now that is the culture. There's a new approach by Europe, which they need to go to the risk assessment. That's why now even for repair they publish CS10, they call it, how to handle repair and modification through risk. I think Cik Kamal cuba guna the approach lah, looking at the criticality of the part. Kalau
Saleh lagi apa? I think for PMA parts, I think one important aspect also is the letter of authorization, which allows that part to be fitted on that aircraft type or serial number. That's also another point that need to be we need to conform to. And so another factor is that if the PMA part is listed in the IPC, then I think there should be no problem using the PMA part, because PMA part is for piston engine aircraft, banyak PMA part, filters and so on, PMA parts.
Like I said, bracket for oxygen bottle dalam IPC ada?
Ada dalam small aircraft I've seen it.
Cik Saleh, tadi cik saya cakap authorization letter tu daripada siapa lah?
That one it comes together with the it should come together with the PMA part from the PMA approval holder. That is a letter of authorization which clearly indicate that that part can be installed on that aircraft type or limited to serial number or etc. Okay.
But still, if you present to authority, they will ask us to validate, isn't it?
Yes. I think notice number 73, I think. AN 73.
And then you have to go to DOA, or you have to go to 78 as a mod approval.
For the PMA parts, it's not a simple.
If you don't have any info, if you don't have airworthiness data, complete airworthiness data for the installation, design for installation, then I believe something has to be done. You cannot just go there and ask. Because 8110 say that they come out with 8110. 8110 also there's a small print there requires subjected to local authority approval. So somehow we have to go and see the authority.
So basically PMA part ni dia punya apa nama macam substandard punya part lah. It's not the
not necessary. No, cannot. Some are even better.
Oh, tapi dia dah fulfill apa yang design punya.
Cuma okey, isu dia begini, sama juga macam STC. Okey, bila you buat design part, that's why saya cakap tadi tengok risk. Kalau you buat engine part PMA, okey, bila you buat design, dia tak ada data. The basic data tak ada. Dia buat reverse engineering. Kalau data dia silap, katakan stress dia silap, strength dia silap, part tu akan fail prematurely. Sama juga banyak STC cases, cargo door kadak contohnya by PEMCO, dia tak ada design data, dia cut saja ikut engineering dia, reverse engineering, dia design dia kadak, buat double apa semua, crack. Sebab dia tak, itu isunya. So isu bila dia crack, operator suffer, authority pun suffer. So itu saya cakap tadi pasal risk. Kalau kita nak cakap bracket tadi, dalam compartment saya rasa tak ada risk lah. Tapi kalau talking about engine part, risk is higher. So I think the issue sekarang adalah okay, apa yang kita faham, bila PMA itu buat, dia tak ada access langsung kepada OEM.
Saya faham lah.
Dia semua reverse engineering. So bila reverse engineering, kalau by design, dia kadang-kadang design data tu salah, dan kadang-kadang lagi bagus, kita tak tahu.
Dia tak ada full data of the design.
Tak ada. Dia tak dapat access. Tak ada. Macam kita buat 747 dengan 777 mod hari tu dengan MAS. Kita buat dengan satu company di Washington lah, di Washington State. Happen to be the engineer dia adalah ex-Boeing. So dia faham lah, tapi dia tak ada access langsung dengan Boeing masa dia buat modification design tu. Itulah dia punya situasi dia.
Okay, terima kasih.
Macam mana Cik Kamal? Yeah, good. Lagi? Okay, kalau tak ada,
sorry. Another thing on PMA parts, I think if it's a leased aircraft, then check with the lessor. And as well as the insurance lah.
Yeah. Tapi
the insurance cover the use of PMA parts or not.
Tapi kita faham juga macam Cik Kamal kata, kapal lama-lama kadang part pun mana tak ada.
Yes.
So macam mana nak dapat? Kan?
Another thing is that for PMA parts originating from, of course, United States, it is expected to be accompanied by 8130 also, 8130-3.
Betul.
There is written the AN specified specifically.
Yes. It's in the AN.
Okay. Soalan, discussion. Cik Salih, kalau ada discussion apa experience you dengan GCA, boleh share.
No. It's just that sharing some experience lah.
Boleh, silakan.
Back from
the
land of the sand. The sand territory, not perfect, I suppose, but in the regulations is clearly stated that for PMA parts, it can be used if that part is reflected, if the PMA part is reflected in the IPC or is part of the STC. So automatically you can use the PMA part without further showing.
Okay. I think that's fair.
That's all I would say.
Because it's fair, because liability has been taken by those STC holder.
Yes, exactly. That's how their approach is.
Okay. But sometimes bila kita order part from the supplier bagi PMA sebab dia tak dapat part OEM. Macam mana?
Yes. I think I remember one case clearly also, helicopter shield windshield pun dia pakai PMA part. But so we have to go through the 73 lah. So we presented it to the authority.
Okay.
And of course the as far as the supplier or even the manufacturer, they say you can use the PMA part.
Yeah.
Because they cannot get the original spare.
Correct.
For that windshield. Yeah.
Correct. Okay. So you go back. We can summarize the airworthiness of aircraft. There is issue, for example, drone has been a hot issue. So drone also, to me, for large drone, now they're talking about passenger drone, cargo drone. So the process should be similar to the standard COA. Only thing the technical requirement not in the Annex 8. So they should be restricted TC, which should have special category COA. Only in Malaysia they don't have special category COA. They only have permit to fly. So there's no word COA there. Some country, I got a friend who flying balloon. When they bring the balloon to other country, when they don't see the COA, this fellow cannot fly. Because Annex 831, the article 31 states so they follow that. They said you don't have COA, then we cannot let you fly. So they end up operating. I think I heard they register the balloon in other country, so they got COA. So our situation now is non-standard aircraft. I mean, there's no technical requirement in the Annex 8. The Malaysia did not issue COA. So what will happen if you have drone and they only have permit to fly, so the drone cannot go for commercial flight. So something we need to work out, how to allow this special category aircraft to have special category certificate of airworthiness.
Another question, Bu. Again.
Yeah.
How about light sport aircraft?
Similarly, light sport aircraft we don't have. There's no, like LSA. As long as TC, no TC, I don't think the COA issues COA. I don't think they also handle restricted TC at the moment.
Okay.
So only pure TC, only aircraft 750 and above. 750 and above, there is a standard airworthiness requirement. Minima is CS23 or VLA, like we are dealing with the Eagle aircraft. So if you have standard airworthiness requirement and been followed, designed to that and certified to that, then they are eligible for the standard certificate of airworthiness.
Okay. Abu, in your next class, are you going to touch a little bit on ELA 1, ELA 2 aircraft, EASA? I'm not really sure, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to go through the chart. Remember the one that I showed you earlier? Yeah.
My screen is jammed now. So where we go from DOA, POA, and then we go to CAMO, we go to here. So we're trying to go through this, walk through this. 8401. And then in 8401 there is a TC, and then you walk to 8201, and then you walk to 8304, you walk to 6102, there's also 6101, you walk to the 6501, you walk to 8401, which we have done in the earlier, so it's not a big problem, and you walk to 8301. So maybe we can touch during the 8107, or we can touch it during 8301.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, alright. Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you for listening. Thank you for participating in this discussion. And if you have any question in the future, you can ask during this session. Because the thing is, we do have people like Cik Saleh, Naveen, who are the operator. Cik Saleh also having experience with GCA. We also have very credible people around here, then we can also discuss. Okay, thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you, Rob.
Happy, be safe, stay home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you, Rob.
Hey Izwa, kau dengan siapa? Kau kerja kat mana tu Izwa?
Marindo. Kerja dengan Marindo.
Oh, okey.
Okey.
Jauh je daripada MAS. Daripada MAS ke Malindo. Okey lah, aku dekat kapal kecil.